I was about a 10-year-old boy in the middle of the Depression back in my small hometown, New Concord, Ohio. My dad had a plumbing and heating shop, and people just weren't building new houses, and you didn't do much repair work back then, and we were in some very tough times. And that's when they started the REA program. And you started having the power lines go out through the countryside around there, and pretty soon people were putting water systems in and inside plumbing and power to the barn to pump water and so on. And my dad suddenly was back in business again as far as helping create some of that in his own small way, create some of that revolution of power coming out to the farm to replace old human muscle power that was required before that. And it revolutionized farming. It revolutionized the Glenn household right along with it, I can tell you that. So I remember those days very well. I was the end product at one time of some of that kind of research and going into space. And I'm proud that I was around at the right period in time and had some of the things at least they were looking for to take part in that program.
You are go. Water systems, go. Range operations, Mercury capsule, go. T-minus 18 seconds and counting engine start. Godspeed, John Glenn.
I was on the peak of a booster, if you will, getting ready to go that had all this technological research behind it. Any one part of that research had been missing, and I would not have been able to go. We would not have gone into space. Well, same thing applies in all the different areas of energy use. Tremendous amount of research has to go on before we make these steps forward. If there's one thing it seems to me we've learned, it's that money spent on basic research, while you cannot guarantee the results, that's what research is all about, but money spent that way seems to always have a way of paying off in the future beyond anything we see at the outset. NASA estimates that for every dollar spent on the space program, there's been about a 7-to-1 return in our economy. Well, let's say they're a little over exuberant there, and they're only half right. That still leaves 3.5-to-1. And that's the value of research. That's how we've become a leader.
We're seeing a lot of products come off the line today that we wouldn't have had if it had not been for good research. And rural people are just as much a part of that as anyone else. No one else is going to do this research for us, so if we want to be a part of a program that solves some of those kinds of problems, about the only way we can do it is through contributions to such organizations as EPRI and NRECA. The research that EPRI is doing in these fields is what's made it possible to hold the line on electric costs in this country. For example, one project, air-to-air heat pumps. They've developed a heat pump with a coefficient of better than 3 to 1. Well, that means for every kilowatt hour that was used in that heat pump, you get the equivalent value of BTUs going in the home of 3 to 1. And you can easily see what the value of that will be in the end use. They also, in that same heat pump, they said we want a heat pump that lasts longer. So if you go from about a 15-year life to 20 or 25 years, you can see how much that's going to improve the efficiency of the product.
People tend to think that all research is some giant project that would fill this building, and it's not that at all. It's people who take the time and are interested enough individually to really get into something and really study it and then come up with an idea. And then you need some research to prove out the idea. And then the idea becomes a concept, and then you can expand it to business and industry and energy production and whatever it is you're doing, and that's just the nature of research. Nothing just comes down from on high in this government and says we will have a new energy source and we will have X for conservatism. It happens because there are millions upon millions of Americans get together and work on it. I don't think any rural cooperative or REA member or anyone else should think that their voice is so tiny it won't be heard. Get together with other members and do something. That's how we get progress in this country.
Most exciting and fun parts of participating in EPRI is that they're always looking for host utilities to try out some things that are ready. Maybe they aren't ready to go commercial, but they're out there and they need to have some field testing. A notice came out that they had some of these polysil insulators that was really inexpensive, easy to make, and would resist gunshots. So we said, sure, we'd like to test a few of them. A few weeks later, a box came with a bunch of funny colored insulators, and we put them up. And as far as I know, we've never gotten one of them back, and that was 6, 7 years ago. By the time the amorphous steel transformer came around, we were aware that EPRI used host utilities, and we were a little better prepared to respond to it. And NRECA also took a real role in promoting this one by providing some of the funds, and so that we could buy these transformers at about our normal price for a 25 kVA transformer.
When we first received the transformers and tested them in our facility, we discovered that the losses in these transformers was approximately 90% less than in the conventional transformers we had been using. It is estimated that if all the 10,000 transformers on the Jackson County REMC system were replaced with the amorphous metal low-loss transformer, our system losses could be reduced by $500,000.
About 4 years ago, we were aware that some work was being done on a composite pole. It's basically a wood chip pole. We asked for one of them, and we got it in, and we actually displayed it at our annual meeting before we put it in the ground so that our consumers could see what it was and that here was something new and exciting that we were doing with their money and for them. PCB test kit is something that came from EPRI, and it's probably one of the real success stories that has gone to full commercialization without some of the trials and tribulations in between. The PCB test kit, I think, costs about $5, and that's as opposed to spending $50 on a lab test. So that's a fantastic savings, and it's something that your own people can do. And you don't have to go shipping a lot of hardware around all over the countryside. Trees, of course, in this part of the country are a big part of our cost. We're spending $500,000 to $750,000 a year trimming trees. One of the exciting things that is being made available is a tree retardant chemical that will slow down the growth of these shade trees where you can't cut them. It cuts out one trimming cycle for those trees from 2 to 3 years up to 5 to 6 years. Full EPRI participation in research by any utility calls for 20% of the funds to be available to the contributing utility for its own research. And the way NRECA has handled that, because most of us are small utilities and really can't have our own research programs, is to take this 20% of the EPRI contribution and bring it into the NRECA research program so that the funds from all of us can be pooled and get into some of the projects that are of particular interest to rural electric cooperatives. Full participation in EPRI really only costs about 25 cents a meter a month, and that's not really very much. If you want to joke about it, it's about the equivalent of a cold six-pack a year per consumer. And I don't think that's much of a sacrifice, and I don't think the consumers think that's much of a sacrifice either.
What I have found in my efforts in science through the years is this: every time we make a breakthrough, that isn't the end. It opens up 10 new areas of inquiry that you now want to go out and look into each individually here that may in turn open up more and more and more. It's like a proliferation. It's a quantum leap every time you make some new breakthrough. What's going to happen off this superconductivity? We can't even begin to see right now how all that is going to work out, because it may let us make energy storage with supermagnets. It may mean that instead of having a diesel engine half as big as this room, we'll be able to do the same thing with an electric motor this big around with the supermagnets this long. Weights go down. Does it make electric airplanes possible someday? I don't know. I don't rule it out. I know that.
I get excited when I think about these things, and I think that's our role. We're out there trying to harvest the frontier. We're trying to anticipate. We're trying to understand the implications for this industry, not only in the supply and the delivery, but perhaps as importantly in the utilization of electricity. What can we do with new ways to use it? Electrification has driven the economic development of the world. We think it can make for major change in the decades and the century ahead. The question is, can we take that science, can we convert it into technology that has value, and then can we deliver it in a competitive environment? That's where the race is now heading, and it'll be interesting to see how it comes out.
We want to be number one because that one factor gives us control over our future. We don't have to go to some other country and buy our technology back and say, you know, can't we please have this for a certain price because you invented it and we'd like to have it in our country too. When we're the one moving ahead with energy use and with new products, we're the ones that are the world's leader, and that gives us control over the jobs and employment. It gives us control over our own future. That's the importance of being number one.
One of the things that we're doing in cooperatives is that we're saying we are concerned about our consumers, we're concerned about our fellow men, about our fellow members. We're all in this thing together. And so we should be thinking about what are we doing for each other. And research is looking down to the future, looking toward our grandchildren and children and their children and grandchildren out there. And that's what it's all part of. So if you look at a research program in the same context as you look at college education programs for your kids, they have the same kinds of payouts in the same time frames and in the same way. Maybe not this generation, but certainly the next generation. And where would we be if the last generation hadn't done it for us?